Welcome to Required Watching. This is a show where we talk about films based on the list of cinematic influencers and look at them through the lens of learning about filmmaking and how to move forward. I'm your host, Trey Epps, and today we're talking about. Listen, can I start with just like a disclaimer? I I am very aware that I don't know all of Indian cinema. I am not as familiar with Indian cinema as I am with other cinema. I feel like it would be wildly offensive to make incredible swings about the culture itself because I feel like film is so entangled in the culture. But allow me to ponder as we talk about the 2003 film Boot. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but of course, Boot in I believe Hindi means ghosts, and this was released back in 2003. And I'm so sorry, but I will be butchering names along the way, so bear with me. When this film, a horror film, was released in theaters in 2003, I think it sent a lot of shockwaves. This, I believe, is technically a Bollywood horror film. It was directed by Ram Gopal Varma, and Boot didn't just rely on jump scares and cliches that many Indian horror films of the time were known for. Instead, it delivered a tense psychological thriller that explored the haunted house trope with a fresh and terrifying perspective. With with very 2003 performances, a tightly woven script, and Varma's signature atmospheric direction, Boot stands out as Bollywood's most one of Bollywood's most influential films. Um, Again, I'm talking about the 2003 Boot. I believe just this year, last year, there's a Boot haunted boat from India, and I just want to make it really, really clear. But upon doing research, this seemed to be a really, really influential film. Now, I grimace as I talk about this film, mainly because mainly because this film could not feel more 2003 if it tried. And I think that's not me saying that it's bad, but I couldn't help but watch this and go, this feels a bit dated. Um, and having seen like Tumbad, I watched that last year, and it was the year before. Anyways, it felt like there's so much time has passed. 20 years have passed between that film and Tumbad, and like things have changed drastically. So it feels so it, again dated in that it feels so 2003. It was probably shot a year or two before. But this film was set in Mumbai. They call it Bombay. That's how old it is. And it tells the story of Vishal and Swati, a young couple who move into a new apartment unaware of the tragic and violent events that took place there. The film begins to unfold when Swati starts experiencing eerie and terrifying occurrences in the apartment. And I think what sets this film apart from conventional films is the emphasis on, I think, a psychological thriller. This is definitely not a jump scare. You will not walk in and have like the first 10 minutes be like everything after the first, the opening be people coming after you with knives or having jump scares or anything like that. Instead, the film relies on supernatural monsters and over the top visual effects, and the film crafts its horror through paranoia, mental unraveling, and subtle supernatural elements that keep the audience on edge. Um, I'm gonna butcher this again, but Umila Matondakar. I'm so sorry, but the actress who plays Swati's performance is honestly one of the strongest bits. She does a great job for being this like normal everyday wife to being possessed. And like as Swati, I think she does a really good job at portraying the descent of like fear and madness and shifting between vulnerability and terror. Um, Her portrayal as a woman unraveling under the weight of inexplicable events gives you in the film its emotional core. It adds layers of its horror as Vishal delivers a strong performance, or like the guy who plays Vishal delivers a strong performance that's grounded. I think there. I'll stop to say that there most certainly is an aspect of this film that feels a bit like over the top, but almost in that campy way. And I guess I'm so hesitant on like talking about this film mainly because I want there to be a good representation of people talking about Indian film, but I also don't want people to watch this movie based on my recommendation and not be warned about I think the differences. Um, but I probably shouldn't do that. And this is a me issue. I think I feel protective of India and its film culture, and I think film culture in general. Um, and I think I don't think many people see Indian films as much as they may see other films from around the world. So I want to make sure that I am, uh, again, protecting it in my own way. Um, but it's a super campy film. I think that's probably the best way of saying it. It's so campy, and I think if you go into it with that lens, and you'll be in for a good time. The direction of this, someone called them online. They called them RGV, of the director Ram Gopal Varma. His direction is what makes this film stand out. It's so weird, and it does a lot of traditional things. Like we're in tight claustrophobic spaces, despite this apartment being seemingly really big. There's minimal lighting, and it's hauntingly quiet, and it heightens, and the tension is weird, and everything just feels so off kilter that when I think this is what it is. The actors feel maybe normal in an abnormal situation, and then when the situation gets weird, their response seems so over the top that the situation actually doesn't feel as dire as you initially thought. So I think that's intentional. I think the way the director play and the actors play with this, with these expectations, is something that breaks the formula. And again, I'm not an expert in Hollywood in Bollywood horror or its formula in general, but I will be because I intend to watch more um, Bollywood horror, but also just horror from India. Um, but I think there's an but um, I, I don't know it to be true. But of course, this doesn't have like elaborate songs and dances. Instead, it's really quiet for the most part. I think a lot of non-horror things happen for a large bit of this movie, and I think the pacing, while I think in some places could be tightened, is pretty good. And I think it's not a 3-hour movie either, so I think you're in for something that feels like it's going to escalate at a gradual pace instead of hitting you over the head with something all at once. Um, and of course, spoiler alert, I will talk about it, but uh, this film actually ends up turning into what I think is not a horror film. I think this is more of an Agatha Christie like Poirot film, a murder mystery situation that's wrapped up in a horror box. And I think that kind of twist was really interesting to me, and I wish we spent more time doing that. I wish we spent more time um, understanding what this what the film unveils to us later on in the movie, um, because I think it does an interesting tonal shift that has you again kind of frightened and kind of unaware about like what this ghost wants. If it's a ghost, are they going to kill the people? Like what's going to happen? And then it becomes a bit of a murder mystery, and then suddenly like we're figuring like we're on a different course entirely, and I think that's what's really interesting about this film. But I do think one of the most chilling aspects is the sound design. Varna employs silence as much as sound and allowing the audience to hear the smallest creaks, whispers, footsteps. I cannot tell you. I the sound on this movie, the sound effects, the Foley artists, the like whatever artless epidemic sound things that they use to give sound to everything is both jarring, frightening, and I think from a production point of view, hilarious. Because there is barely a thing that makes noise that doesn't make noise. And it makes the most obvious noise where for a minute you go, is this mixed properly? What's going on? But again, as someone who's watching these films kind of critically, you think about those things, but the moment you let it go, and I let it go almost immediately, you start to pay attention to the sounds in a different way. If we're hearing the ridiculous footsteps of someone going up the stairs, what are we not hearing? And I think that was an interesting choice for the director to make. Also, I think what stands this movie apart, again, is the psychological aspect of it. The film blurs the lines between reality and the supernatural by asking the audience questions about whether Swati's experiences result in mental instability, or if the apartment is truly haunted. And I think, especially in India, which I find interesting, at least at the time, and I don't mean this in any disrespect at all, but like, I believe she went to the doctor and like Vishal went in. Like the doctor talked to Vishal and not to her. So it's like this like cultural thing happening on top of trying to assess if this woman is experiencing something that just can't be explained, or if she's going insane. And of course, this is again, I think the questions that it poses are actually really interesting to the culture. I say in India, but actually, like, who am I to say? Like, my culture is incredibly broken, so it kind of works very in similar ways. But the film also broke new ground in how it treated horror, in a genre that was overlooked and seen as a niche in Indian cinema. Bhoot brings a level of prestige and horror to filmmaking. It was a commercial success, showing how Indian audiences were hungry for more of the supernatural thrills that they wanted. That could just get under their skin and challenge their perceptions and deliver something truly frightening. This film did not deliver like just scares. I think it set a new standard on Bollywood horror and what it could achieve. Again, too bad it's 20 years later and it's leaps and bounds from what this film was. And I don't know the landscape as clearly, but according to my research, this film was just a drop in a bucket for what India as a film industry would soon accomplish and what it has since accomplished. Is this film recommended? Absolutely. Actually, hold on. I take it back. No, it's not. It's not. I'm going to make an on-the-fly decision here. I'm not sure if this is a recommended film. I think there are other films that you could, even if you are a student in India, even if you're a filmmaker in India, even if you're someone who wants to watch more, if you're someone very specifically who wants to just watch Bollywood horror, go for it. I think that when it comes to filmmaking, actually, all right, there's always something to learn from film. But I do think you can spend 2 hours and 20 minutes elsewhere and see the advances of technology and honestly the advances of like how India has told stories. And as even in this channel, we go back to movies from like the 40s and watch movies from today and see how things have changed. I already can tell you that there are films that are better usage of time to really be able to pick up things that you can implore in right now. What this film does do, and I don't know the budget or anything, but what this film definitely feels like is something that was, again, very 2003, but also very indie. It felt indie. It felt like, I don't mean this in any way that's disrespectful at all, but it almost felt like a student film. It felt like it had like that, like it could do whatever it wanted to do. Like it could tell the story how they wanted to tell the story. And I know nothing about the politics of Indian cinema, but it definitely felt like RGV had a handle on like what this film was going to be, and he could execute it. I don't know if it's his first film or not, but I think that's something you can most certainly take away from this film. And a few more of his films have since been recommended to me. So I intend to check this guy out a bit more. I don't know if he's super famous or not. It'd be crazy if I was just talking about this guy like he was like I don't know, like just some indie director when he's like the Indian Scorsese or something like that. But anyways, what did you think about the film? Have you seen this film? If not, like it's okay. But if you add it to your list and you do watch it, please let me know. If you have other films you want to recommend, specifically in Indian cinema or cinema from around the world, please let me know. I'm always on the hunt to add to my incredible list, and hopefully it will end up right here. We can continue to talk. Um, until next time, people. Peace.